Father, we're gathered here today to honor you. And even though this is a different day in a different way, but Lord, we want to recognize and honor you because you are the Lord of all. And yet you have said that Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And so while we honor you today, we also want to honor our bodies and what you have created with us. And so bless the time that we do spend today here. And I'm asking, Lord God, that in your miraculous power, in your ability, in your all that you can do, that you would cleanse this building of the skunk and cleanse it of all of the other stuff, right? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'shmoa kol shofar. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and has instructed us to hear the voice of the shofar. Hear, Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. Blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'kol levavecha v'kol nafshecha v'kol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anoki mitzachayom alavavecha Vishinantam vidaveta vidirvatebam Divshekteka vidavekta uvlekteka Vaterek ukshakbeka umakumeka Ukshatam leot ayadeka Ve'ayu ledovavot binanecha Uktatam amazuzot vedeka Uvishareka And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently to your children. And you shall speak of them when you sit at home, when you walk along the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Good enough, right?
That was a good one.
We're not lighting the candles today because, one, I forgot to buy candles. Two, the candle didn't stay lit when we opened the doors. So,
It got cold.
so we will not be lighting the candles today. The candles are just representatives of what we light at home on our Shabbat, if we usher in the Shabbat that way. And but blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and has instructed us to be a light to the nations and has given us Yeshua the Messiah, the light of the world. And Father, I thank you that you have given us this day. I thank you that you have given us a heart to serve you. Father, I ask for blessings upon Joy as she is traveling to visit her children and to meet some grandchildren. And Father, I ask that you would continue to pour out blessings upon her during a season that's extremely difficult. That's a challenge to trust in you and to rest in you and to accept from your hand every day what you need. And Father, I thank you for Shiloh, and I ask that you would bless her in the same way. Lord, you have put her in a very hard position. And yet I know that you have called her to this place. So I ask that you would bless her with the hours that she needs for work, that you would bless her with the income that she needs, that you would speed her refund for her so that she can get a house, so that her children can join her again. Lord, I ask that you would bless the others that are not with us today. Lord, you are a good God and you are a great God, and we honor you and we revere your name, and it is in your name we pray. Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen and amen. Let's go ahead and read the Torah portions. Today's Torah portion, it begins the book of Leviticus, which is kind of a misnomer of a name, actually. The book of Leviticus, and the way that it's been named in the English, considers it to be instructions for the Levites. And yet it's not just instructions for the Levites, it's instructions for the people of Israel and how we are to approach God. Leviticus means he called. Vayikra, he called. So we're going to begin with chapter 1, verse 1, and Craig is going to read chapter 1, verse 1 through 13, and then we will continue from there.
Then the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, When any man of you brings an offering to the Lord, you shall bring your offering of animals from the herd or the flock. If his offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he shall offer it, a male without defect. He shall offer it at the doorway of the tent of meeting, that he may be accepted before the Lord. He shall lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, that it may be accepted for him to make atonement on his behalf. He shall slay the young bull before the Lord, and Aaron's sons the priests shall offer up the blood and sprinkle the blood around on the altar that is at the doorway of the tent of meeting. He shall then skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron the priest shall put fire on the altar and arrange wood on the fire. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall arrange the pieces, the head and the suet, over the wood which is on the fire that is on the altar. Its entrails, however, and its legs he shall wash with water, and the priest shall offer up in smoke all of it on the altar for a burnt offering, an offering by fire. An offering by fire, an offering by fire of a soothing aroma to the Lord. But if his offering is from the flock of the sheep or of the goats for a burnt offering, he shall offer it, a male without defect. He shall slay it on the side of the altar northward before the Lord, and Aaron's sons the priests shall sprinkle its blood around on the altar. He shall then cut it into its pieces with its head and suet. And the priest shall arrange them on the wood which is on the fire that is on the altar. The entrails, however, and the legs he shall wash with water, and the priest shall offer all of it, and offer it up in smoke on the altar. It is a burnt offering, an offering by fire of a soothing aroma to the Lord.
Chris, if you'll come and read out of the second chapter, Leviticus 2, 1 through 15. I'm just reading selections from the portion.
Now, when anyone presents a grain offering as an offering to the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil on it, and put frankincense on it. He shall then bring it to Aaron's sons and priests, and shall take from it his handful of its fine flour and its oil, with all of his frankincense. And the priest shall offer it up in smoke as its memorial portion on the altar, an offering by fire of a soothing aroma to the Lord. The remainder of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and his sons, a thing most holy, of the offerings to the Lord by fire. Now when you bring an offering of grain offering baked in an oven, it shall be unleavened cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, or unleavened wafers spread with oil. If your offering is a grain offering made on the griddle, it shall be of fine flour, unleavened, mixed with oil. You shall break it into bits and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. Now, if your offering is a grain offering made in a pan, it shall be made of fine flour with oil. When you bring in the grain offering, which is made of these things to the Lord, it shall be presented to the priest, and he shall bring it to the altar. The priest then shall take up from the grain offering its memorial portion, and shall offer it up in smoke on the altar as an offering by fire of a soothing aroma to the Lord. The remainder of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and his sons, a thing most holy, of the offerings to the Lord by fire. No grain offering which you bring to the Lord shall be made with leaven, for you shall not offer up in smoke any leaven or any honey as an offering by fire to the Lord. As an offering of the first fruits you shall bring them to the Lord, but they shall not ascend for a soothing aroma on the altar. Every grain offering of yours, moreover, you shall season with salt, so that the salt of the covenant of your God shall not be lacking from your grain offering. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. Also, if you bring a grain offering of early ripened things to the Lord, you shall bring fresh heads of grain, roasted in fire, grits of new growth, for the grain offering for your early ripened things. You shall put oil on it and lay incense on it. It is a grain offering.
And we're going to skip through some of the other offerings where it talks about the different priests offering, and we're going to go ahead and go to chapter 5. This is talking about the sin offering of the individuals now. If a person who is a witness sworn to testify sins by refusing to tell what he has seen or heard about the matter, he must bear the consequences. If a person touches something unclean, whether the carcass of an unclean wild animal, a domestic animal, or a reptile, he is guilty, even though he may not be aware that he is unclean. If he touches some human uncleanness, no matter what the source of his uncleanness is, and is unaware of it, then when he learns of it, he is guilty. If someone allows to slip from his mouth an oath to do evil or to do good, and he doesn't remember that he clearly spoke this oath, then no matter what it was about, when he learns of it, he is guilty. A person guilty of any of these things is to confess in what manner he sinned, and bring his guilt offering to Adonai for the sin he committed. It is to be a female from the flock, either a lamb or a goat, as a sin offering, and the Cohen will make atonement for him in regard to his sin. If he can't afford a lamb, he is to bring as his guilt offering for the sin he committed 2 doves or 2 young pigeons for Adonai, the one as a sin offering, the other as a burnt offering. He is to bring them to the Cohen, who will offer the one for a sin offering first. He is to wring its neck, but not remove the head. Sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the altar, and drain out the rest of the blood on the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. He is to prepare the second part as a burnt offering in the manner prescribed. Thus the Cohen will make atonement for him in regard to the sin which he committed, and he will be forgiven. But if his means are insufficient for even 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, then he is to bring as his offering for the sin he committed 2 quarts of fine flour for a sin offering. He is not to put any olive oil or frankincense on it, because it is a sin offering. He is to bring it to the Cohen, and the Cohen is to take a handful of it as a reminder portion, and make it go up in smoke on the altar, on top of the offerings for Adonai made by fire. It is a sin offering. Thus the Cohen will make atonement for him in regard to the sin he committed concerning any of these things, and he will be forgiven. The rest will belong to the Kohanim as a grain offering. Craig, are you up to reading the rest, or should I? Okay. We're going to finish this week's Torah portion. If you have a complete Jewish Bible or a Jewish type Bible, it's Leviticus 5:14 through 26. But if you have a standard Christian Bible, it will be Leviticus 5:14 through chapter 6, verse 7.
Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, If a person acts unfaithfully and sins unintentionally against the Lord's holy things, then he shall bring his guilt offering to the Lord, a ram without defect from the flock, according to your valuation in silver by shekels, in terms of the shekel of the sanctuary, for a guilt offering. He shall make restitution for that which he has sinned against the holy thing, and shall add to it a fifth part of it, and give it to the priest. The priest shall then make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and it will be forgiven him. Now, if a person sins and does any of the things which the Lord has commanded not to be done, though he was unaware, still he is guilty and shall bear his punishment. He is then to bring to the priest a ram without defect from the flock, according to your valuation, for a guilt offering. So the priest shall make atonement for him concerning his error in which he sinned unintentionally and did not know it, and it will be forgiven him. It is a guilt offering. He was certainly guilty before the Lord. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, When a person sins and acts unfaithfully against the Lord and deceives his companion in regard to a deposit or a security entrusted to him, or through robbery, or if he has extorted from his companion, or has found what was lost and lied about it and sworn falsely, so that he sins in regard to any one of the things a man may do, then it shall be, when he sins and becomes guilty, that he shall restore what he took by robbery, or what he got by extortion, or the deposit which was entrusted to him, or the lost thing which he found, or anything about which he swore falsely. He shall make restitution for it in full, and add to it 1/5 more. He shall give it to the one to whom it belongs on the day he presents his guilt offering. Then he shall bring to the priest his guilt offering to the Lord, a ram without defect from the flock, according to your valuation, for a guilt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord, and he will be forgiven for any one of the things which he may have done to incur guilt.
Now we're going to jump to the HAFTARAH portion, Isaiah 44. And I shortened it a little bit. I shortened it. Isaiah 44, verse 1 through 23.
But now listen, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus says the Lord who made you and formed you from the womb, who will help you. Do not fear, O Jacob, my servant, and you, Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. For I will pour out water on the thirsty land, and streams on the dry ground. I will pour out my spirit on your offspring, and my blessing on your descendants, and they will spring up among the grass, like poplars by the streams of water. This one will say, I am the Lord's, and that one will call on the name of Jacob. And another will write on his hand, belonging to the Lord, and will name Israel's name with honor. Thus says the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, I am the first, and I am the last, and there is no God besides me. Who is like me? Let him proclaim and declare it. Yes, let him recount it to me in order, from the time that I established an ancient nation, and let them declare to them the things that are coming, and the events that are going to take place. Do not tremble and do not be afraid. Have I not long since announced it to you and declared it? And you are my witnesses. Is there any God besides me? Or is there any other rock? I know of none. Those who fashion a graven image are all of them futile, and their precious things are of no profit. Even their own witnesses fail to see it or to know, so that they will be put to shame. Who has fashioned a god or cast an idol to no profit? Behold, all his companions will be put to shame, for the craftsmen themselves are mere men. Let them all assemble themselves. Let them stand up. Let them tremble. Let them together be put to shame. The man shapes iron into a cutting tool and does his work over the coals, fashioning it with hammers and working it with his strong arm. He also gets hungry and his strength fails. He drinks no water and becomes weary. Another shapes wood. He extends a measuring line. He outlines it with red chalk. He works it with planes and outlines it with a compass and makes it like the form of a man, like the beauty of man, so that it may sit in a house. Surely he cuts cedars for himself and takes a cypress or an oak and raises it for himself among the trees of the forest. He plants a fir and the rain makes it grow. Then it becomes something for a man to burn. So he takes one of them and warms himself. He also makes a fire to bake bread. He also makes a god and worships it. He makes it a graven image and falls down before it. Half of it he burns in the fire. Over this half he eats meat as he roasts a roast and is satisfied. He also warms himself and says, "Aha! I am warm. I have seen the fire." But the rest of it he makes into a god, his graven image. He falls down before it and worships. He also prays to it and says, "Deliver me, for you are my God." They do not know, nor do they understand, for he has smeared over their eyes so that they cannot see, and their hearts so that they cannot comprehend. No one recalls, nor is there knowledge or understanding to say, "I have burned half of it in the fire, and also have baked bread over its coals. I roast meat and eat it. Then I make the rest of it into an abomination. I fall down before a block of wood." He feeds on ashes. A deceived heart has turned him aside, and he cannot deliver himself, nor say, "Is there not a lie in my right hand?" Remember these things, O Jacob and Israel, for you are my servant. I have formed you. You are my servant. O Israel, you will not be forgotten by me. I have wiped out your transgressions like a thick cloud, and your sins like a heavy mist. Return to me, for I have redeemed you. Shout for joy, O heavens, for the Lord has done it. Shout joyfully, you lower parts of the earth. Break forth into a shout of joy, you mountains. O forest and every tree in it, for the Lord has redeemed Jacob, and in Israel he shows forth his glory.
Reading from the Apostolic Writings comes out of Matthew. Bob was going to come and read Matthew chapter 5, verse 23 through verse 30. Matthew 5, 23 through 30.
Therefore, if you are presenting your offering at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar, and go first, be reconciled to your brother, and then come and present your offering. Make friends quickly with your opponent at law while you are with him on the way, so that your opponent may not hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the officer, and you be thrown into prison. Truly I say to you, you will not come out of there until you have paid up the last cent. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that anyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye make you stumble, tear it out and throw it from you, for it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than your whole body be thrown into hell. If your right hand makes you stumble, cut it off and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell.
Some of our readings today are a little challenging, a little different, a little difficult. The book of Leviticus is a book that a lot of Christians kind of avoid. We don't like it. Why don't we like it? Well, first of all, we don't like the blood. Flat out. We are, most of us, typical city dwellers in a sense. We don't understand blood. We don't understand the what it takes to have meat on the table. It's like one of those jokes about the gal that wrote a letter to people saying, quit going hunting and go and buy your meat at the grocery store so the animals don't have to suffer. Obviously, she's never paid attention to the way food is processed, right? But at the same time, Leviticus has an awful lot to teach us about a lot of things. In Judaism, this is the book that children to begin with at the age of 5. When they begin teaching children Torah, they begin with the book of Leviticus, and they begin at the age of 5. Can you imagine reading this to a 5-year-old? I take care of a 5-year-old all week. I'm not sure I could understand any of this for her. She would just look at me and go, gross, oh yeah, awful, whatever. And yet, that's a family that does go hunting, that does process their meat. She understands that to a degree, and she'll see some of that to a degree, but there's still a thing about it that's like, what? A 5-year-old? They start this with 5-year-olds? But part of it, too, is that we just flat don't get it. We just don't get it. We have taken and made it into something that it's not. I'm going to read here from something that our friend Patrick wrote, Patrick Lambrosco, regarding this. He says, speak to the people of Israel, Leviticus 1, verse 2. When any of you brings an offering to Adonai, you may bring your animal offering either from the herd or from the flock. And it says the English word sacrifice refers to something that's hard for us to give, right? If we sacrifice, it's hard. The word offering also comes from the idea that we offer or we give up something. We are giving something from us, right? It's an offering. The problem is that this has nothing to do with the idea that is given to us in the book of Leviticus. It resembles the pagan ideas of bribing our God, and we don't bribe God to have an audience with him. We don't need to bribe him. The root word that is used for offering, for sacrifice, is a root word that actually expresses the idea of coming near or getting close to, approaching. From it we get the verb lecharev, which means to approach, the word karov, which means to be close, and the reflexive verb that means to approach, which is what Leviticus is using. It says, if I were to translate this literally, it would be this. When a man desires to bring himself to approach Adonai, let him bring a token of his approaching. It's a little different, isn't it? It's a little different. It's all about giving God a gift in a sense, and yet it's not a gift God needs. It's about making ourselves ready to present ourselves to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. It's about drawing close to him. And why in the world would we draw close to him? Because it says he called. Vayikra, he called. He called. Not we called. He called. He called and he said, come to me. And when you come to me, this is how you can come to me so that you don't die, because I'm holy and I'm righteous and I can't dwell where it's unholy, where it's unrighteous. We draw close to him because he calls us, right? We love him because he first loved us. It's in 1 John. You can look it up. The whole idea of coming to God is because he loves us, because he wants to dwell with us. There are 5 different sacrifices and or offerings that are mentioned in this book. 5 different ones. 5 is the number of grace. And so as we study through the book of Leviticus, I'm going to be looking at it from a perspective of how do we see the grace of God in each of these. This week it just kind of introduces them. Next week it'll do a little bit more about what the priests do with each offering. And so we're going to hold off most of the teaching until then, in part because we want to be kind to our bodies and not be breathing all this stuff in. Let's have grace on ourselves as God has grace on us. And I'm really glad you guys came today. I'm sorry that we have to cut it short, but I want to end with another thing that he wrote that I think is really good. Okay, we don't think of Judaism in terms of recognizing Yeshua as the sacrifice or as the one, as whatever. We don't recognize that they have a place in Judaism for the one to stand in place of all the others, right? In Judaism, it's all about the priest, but there's this other thing that goes on. You know, when the temple system ended, they didn't quite know what to do for a season. And yet they did exactly what they had done before during the diaspora, during the time of Daniel, before the temple was rebuilt, when Nebuchadnezzar had come through, when Jerusalem had been destroyed, when the temple had been destroyed. There was a season there where they didn't have the temple too. What they did was they instituted prayer times that would correlate with the sacrifice times, so that each person could bring himself to God at the same time as the sacrifices, in the same way, but in a repentant heart and a repentant spirit and in prayer. And that's exactly what is done today in Judaism. Instead of having a temple with sacrifices, they have prayer books with daily prayers. And the daily prayers coordinate with the times that the sacrifices would have been offered. And in their daily prayers acknowledge that there is no blood sacrifice right now, but God, we know that you are a gracious God and you are a God of forgiveness. And so we hold to that and we hold on to that and we hold on to that. There's an ancient midrash on the book of Exodus called Midrash Rabbah Shemot. And there's a speculative story that is written in the midrash, which is a part of the Talmud. It says, Moses said to God, will not the time come when Israel shall have neither temple nor tabernacle? What will happen with them then? The divine reply was this: I will then take one of their righteous men, and I will retain him as a pledge on their behalf, in order that I may pardon all of their sin. According to the sages of Israel, he has taken a righteous man in pledge for us. That righteous man is Yeshua. The sacrifices and death of a righteous man, one righteous man, is more efficacious to atone for sin than all of the temple sacrifices. Why? Because the temple sacrifices have to repeat and repeat and repeat. And yet, when he takes the pledge of the one righteous man, it works for all time. God's grace is found in Leviticus. And that's going to be the focus of our study as we look at it in the future. And for now, let's be gracious and we'll pray and dismiss. I do want to let you know I received a call from Moshe last night, and the fellowship that they have has a special guest today who is a Cohen, and he's got a special message, and we'll be releasing a special blessing to all. Their services start at noon with a meal, I believe. I'm not sure how all that works. I haven't been yet, but we have all been invited to go over there. So if you feel like you want to participate with that, you're welcome to do that. It's over on Shasta, just off of the bypass, and you can't miss it. There's a big sign in the front yard. So Moshe and his congregation invited us to join them for that. So if you want to go to that, you've been invited, and feel free to do that. And in the meantime, be blessed. Let's finish with the Aaronic blessing, my version. Yes.
We have a friend that her husband had a heart attack a few days ago, and he died. He was in New Mexico somewhere, and visiting, trying to go somewhere to visit his brother and take him his motor home, and died on the way. And
what's your first name?
Rosie.
Rose
Eldridge.
So let's be praying for Rose.
One of my biker friends.
And the brother.
And the brother.
His brother, yeah.
And he's probably feeling quite guilty right about now.
No.
And yet, it's one of those things when it's time.
Yeah, and he wasn't driving, thank goodness. He pulled over and
He was
at a rest area or something.
Yeah.
Father, help them. We release a blessing over that family. And we pray for our friend Kathy also, whose husband passed away. We were at his memorial. And she's in the process of moving. And all that. And I haven't found out yet where in town she's moving or what's going on with that. But I'll find out from her. But it's hard. And our friend Kathy, who lost a husband in October, I think it was. And there's a lot of it going around. Some of it, I think, is our age.
Yeah. The older you get, the more you come across that.
Yeah. Let's release with the blessing and be praying for all these people. Be praying for each other. Because we need God's blessing upon all of us, right? The Lord bless you.
The Lord bless you.
And keep you.
And keep you.
Lord, make his face to shine upon you. The Lord bless you.
The Lord bless you.
And keep you.
And keep you.
The Lord make his face to shine upon you. And be gracious unto you. And be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up.
The Lord lift up
His countenance on you and give you peace. Shabbat shalom, shalom aleichem. Be blessed. May the building be cleansed before we come back on Wednesday for Purim. Right?
Yes.